everyone, welcome to the second in our series of Tribe webcasts or podcasts. We're doing these in the run-up to Peak 2020, and who knows what that is going to look like. Tribe, as hopefully you know, are web performance experts, helping making digital journeys faster and error-free. We're joined today by Julien from Fastly. Julien, would you like to give a quick intro to yourself and Fastly?
Sure, thanks for having me, Alistair. So I'm Julien Maingard. I head up the sales engineering team at Fastly. And Fastly is what we call an edge compute platform. It is essentially a more modern approach to the traditional CDN model. Essentially a globally distributed private network that enables caching and processing of applications closer to your end users, delivering a faster and more scalable performance for your applications.
Very topical, of course.
Indeed.
So yeah, as I said at the top, we're doing these in the run up to peak, and obviously it's a critical time for retailers in normal circumstances, but this year is a year like no other. So we were keen to understand from Fastly's perspective the conversations you're having with your clients and the market in general, Black Friday and peak in the golden quarter, how you see that being different from previous years. Obviously, we've seen things like the products doing very well during lockdown, garden furniture, pizza ovens, DIY.
Bicycles.
Yeah, indeed. So that's one aspect. But is there anything else you guys are hearing that is going to be significantly different?
Sure. So I think you're absolutely right. The e-commerce space certainly has taken a boom from the COVID situation. This peak traffic period, which we typically see as Black Friday, is commonly known within e-commerce as kind of peak window. However, as you say, there's a ton of other industries who are now, due to the social situation that we faced, have had to pivot and kind of end up with an online presence. Generally, the peak window is due to sales season at the same time to some extent. However, with more businesses driving online sales than they would on premise, you might find that those sales are extended to a greater range of products, a greater number of companies all wanting to get into the kind of sales season. But even organizations like education and medical are all having to essentially extend their platforms and services to be able to be available online. While these might not have a similar peak profile to e-commerce, I think certainly the things that we need to consider here are really also going to apply to them in the long term too, as everyone needs to kind of build out their systems for this new world.
Absolutely. What do you think, or what are you advising your customers to look out for ahead of this peak? Are there any gotchas, any things that you're encouraging them to do differently, or maybe you've encouraged them to do already, but it's more front and center now?
Sure. So I mean, it's no surprise that our organization has always espoused the values of performance and scale. I mean, these are the things that the two primary things that everybody wants out of an online experience. Does it work? Can it keep working while I'm using it? And is it going to slow me down trying to do what I want to do? So I think everything really is a derivative of those two key features, making sure that your users have a great experience, keeps them happy, and that your service is available. And certainly one of the things that you need to be concerned about is really making sure that these two aspects are maintained, especially during peak traffic. During peak traffic, it becomes harder to run a positive experience just because the amount of resources essentially increases exponentially. And most applications, while they may work fairly well during normal traffic windows, when you start to stress out an application with large amounts of volume, additional requests, wider range of products that you're trying to deliver. These all use up resources and can either affect the user experience, slowing things down, or in fact stop working entirely.
Yeah, absolutely. And you've got to understand where those bottlenecks are.
Absolutely.
Yeah, by calling them out early as well. Don't leave it to the last minute. Test them. Make sure you know what you need to do to remedy it.
Definitely. Key things to look out for really are, what are the regions, where are your hotspots? Typically, if you're a global application, what are your kind of key markets, and what is the kind of traffic levels that you typically see from there? But then also going a little bit further than that, you would be starting to look at what are emerging markets. Now that more people have been are consuming online, are you going to see hotspots bubbling up that perhaps you didn't see before? More people are interacting via devices. Are you supporting a range of devices? Will some of them not be supported? Will some of them have a slower experience? If more people moved to device-based interaction with your application, are they going to have a poorer experience? And really looking at the ability to sustain browsing behavior versus actual conversion and buying behavior. The two of them essentially use up resources very differently. A browsing behavior typically can easily be responded to with just simple kind of caching your site, making sure that your images and your page itself stays up. But when you start going into the buying mechanism, you're actually using back office applications. Different sets of resources are being used, and those can bottleneck quite quickly. So understanding all of the profiles of those various resource usages is going to give you a much better understanding of how your application is going to hold up during peak traffic.
Yeah, absolutely. And those are conversations we're having with our customers a lot, understanding what that behavior looks like now as well. Now that there are these new, lockdown-born customers who haven't shopped digitally before and now are digitally engaged, and how do they shop? Are they browsing for longer? And typically in Black Friday, if people are going after specific products, the conversion rate you would expect will be higher. Is it going to be higher? What does that purchase journey look like in terms of volume? And using the data, you have to try and best predict what that looks like. So when you're testing those things, you're stressing the system in the realistic way and identifying what needs to be done.
Exactly. And testing is always, I would always say that testing is one of the key things to do. Make sure that you know your application inside out. Throw synthetic traffic at it. If you can, throw real user traffic at it. Leverage the experience of your peers and any third parties that you're working with as well. So certainly we all, to some extent, build applications using third-party components, whether it be a kind of a stack or a suite. There will be forums, there will be support mechanisms that you can engage with those third parties and let them help you understand where weaknesses in those stacks may lie. But certainly leverage any sort of information you can find and understand that as much as you can. And testing is always the best way to do that, and have a solid plan to discover all the weak points in your application.
Yeah, and I guess from an action perspective, what are you guys encouraging your customers to do to give them that confidence and assurance?
Absolutely. So at Fastly, some of the things that we do really well is we effectively are a private network. We're there to take on the load and scale on your application's behalf. So by leveraging something like a CDN or an edge cloud, you're effectively allowing that resource to take the bulk of the traffic that comes on. And with that in mind, to use that most efficiently, obviously cache as much as you can. Generally, being able to cache all of your resources, even your dynamic pages, rather than just the images and stuff like that, you will reduce bottlenecks. Even caching things like APIs, the ability to cache an API response, even something that lasts about 5 seconds and then is refreshed. You can do that with Fastly with the ability to invalidate within 150 milliseconds, meaning that even things that you couldn't cache before can now be stood up on a CDN that can handle a huge amount of simultaneous users trying to interact with your site, and it takes that pressure off of your application. Any redundancies that you have in your back office application, things that mean that you've got a disaster recovery site, you can load balance that. You can use Fastly as an edge load balancing that is aware of context in each response. If you've got a microservices application or even just a server farm that you need to load balance through, you can use load balancing to help your application stand up longer, even for things like a massive amount of people trying to buy a single product at the same time. The ability to scale via API. If you have like a cloud-based infrastructure, you can essentially scale that in a very, very short amount of time, and then have the CDN respond via API to include those additional resources in a larger pool of load balancing. It means that your application and your application front end can scale almost instinctively with the amount of load that you're getting. So these are the sorts of things will improve your ability to handle huge amounts of traffic. Other things include resource efficiency. You know, if you're serving to different device types, make sure that you're resizing images and things like that that are appropriate for that device, lessening the bandwidth that you're having to send out, and essentially creating a tailored experience for each user. These are efficiencies that also require less resources from your application as well. And these are the things that essentially create a greater ability to make throughput from your application and deliver the service that you need to with a happy customer at the end more possible.
Yeah, absolutely. Obviously, it's interesting talking to you guys from an edge perspective, and having been in the performance space a long time. Keen to hear your views on performance testing, you know, a stack, particularly from a CDN perspective. You know, testing through CDN versus testing direct to
Right.
origin. What's your view on that?
So I would say load testing via a CDN generally is can be a poor use of resources. CDNs are generally designed to scale to huge amounts of volume. So throwing a ton of traffic synthetically at a CDN that is designed to take on a lot of traffic will really not give you a lot of useful information on where the bottlenecks in your application are. Typically, you know, serving cacheable images, throwing a ton of traffic to a CDN, you'll just get lots of successful responses. You won't see any bottlenecks there. It's when you're trying to kind of find gaps in the delivery. So what are the kind of the resources that don't scale very well? You're looking at things like your database, you're looking like at our connections to the origin, you're looking at the amount of bandwidth that the origin is provisioned to deliver out. Those are the things that a single serving infrastructure can't scale very well, unless you're using something in the cloud, which is great, but also a CDN is designed to be able to handle millions of parallel requests. It's designed to be able to deliver a ton of bandwidth. It'll all be provisioned in advance. What you really want to do with a load testing strategy is try and hit the parts that don't scale well. Throw a bit of load to it. You can either bypass the CDN and go directly to the application, implying that the CDN will effectively handle X% of your load, or you may even say, all right, well, we only want to channel it to aspects that we know are bottlenecks, known bottlenecks already. So you can kind of tailor it between discovery of bottlenecks, throwing larger amounts of load, seeing where slowdowns occur first, but then also directly hitting weak points to see where that actual fail point exists. So knowing both of those aspects are really it. So you want breadth and depth in terms of how to discover where the gaps are and how deep they are.
Yeah. So we've talked a lot about peak, obviously, because it's almost upon us. I guess it is upon us pretty much. But the other thing we're having a lot of conversation around, both internally and externally, is that digital engagement is probably here to stay. Yes. So looking a bit longer term, are there any conversations you're having now around that, or is there anything you would you're seeing generally that's worth sharing?
I think people are reviewing key aspects of their design, considering this an early stage. Lots of people have had to pivot in a very short time frame, and so you'll see those are where the more reactive changes come from. But I would encourage everyone who is either already in the online space or needing to move more into the online space to look at design of your application. There are a number of different ways that you can build in flexibility, scalability, and things like having a microservices architecture, using cloud-based auto-scaling features. These are the sorts of things where even if you can't get that ready for this peak, next year's peak is going to be more predictable based on the fact that it will be the second run that we have in this sort of climate. If things go back to normal by then, that's great, but I doubt they will. I think, as you say, it's here to stay. So looking at how your systems are able to handle additional load, look at the optimization of resources within your application, and work on those key aspects starting now. Drive performance, look at how your users are interacting, monitor everything all the way through your stack to see where you can eke out microseconds and milliseconds of performance. Have a performance budget. Say, I want the site to load, each page to load within this amount of time, and I would like this journey to load, to be able to be completed within this amount of time. Iterate fast and create continuous integration cycles that allow you to make small changes often and on a repeatable and continuous improvement journey. That's what I would say.
Absolutely, and yet obviously that speaks well into what we talk about. Focus on the journey. The customer journey is all the way through the site, not just coming to your homepage.
Exactly.
Not just hitting a single product page. It's engaging with the site and buying things on your site. And I think they have to be aware that if they're not doing it, everyone else will be doing it. So they must be in a position where they're improving this stuff
exactly.
to the customers stay engaged. Have you got any final closing thoughts you'd like to share?
Yes, I think certainly just to summarize all of the points that we've raised today, I would say there's kind of 4 things that come to mind. One is to know your application limits, understand where it will survive and where it will struggle. That's through the testing methodology we discussed. Leverage third-party expertise where applicable. That means, talk to peers, know who your vendors are and where they can help you. And really the idea that applications that scale and can adapt quickly are at lower risk of failing. In short, I would say these all kind of roll into the idea of be prepared to succeed. What happens if suddenly everybody wants what you have? Can you deliver it to them?
Absolutely. That's a great closing thought. So Julien, thanks very much for joining us. Really appreciate it.
Thanks for allowing me to join you, Alistair. It's been really good.
Yeah, excellent. We'll speak to you again soon.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.